Hello and welcome to Cultcast. I'm your host Valija, and we're joined on our second episode of Exploring Ethnicities by Selina.
Hi.
Hi. So I think before we start, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself in on campus? Like maybe anything that you're willing to tell us, your major, what you do, what your interests are.
Okay. Hi, my name is Selina. I'm a physics major. It's actually my last year, my last semester, hopefully. And then I'll be done. What I do on campus usually is just honestly walk around and have coffee. There isn't much to do, and like some clubs and stuff like that. I've been volunteering recently with like the TTB club too. That's been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it.
So I guess the first thing I want to ask you is a little bit about how you grew up, but what I mean by that is maybe what you remember about culture or ethnicity and how it influenced you, the way you thought, the way maybe because I'm assuming the neighborhood that you grew up in, was it sort of mixed race, or was it dominantly like a specific thing?
Okay, growing up, we actually used to live in the UAE in
Okay.
Dubai. So growing up in a place like Dubai, you basically do interact with a lot of different ethnicities. So we
Yeah.
weren't like part of a sub
Okay.
subculture or whatever you want to like call it. But basically like over there we met a lot of like Palestinians, for example, and like a lot of Jordanians there too.
Yeah.
And by the way, I am Jordanian, Circassian. I should have mentioned that earlier.
I should have asked.
But basically, like when I was 5 years old, we moved back to Jordan because honestly, I think one of the biggest parts of our culture is family. Like
Yeah.
how much we value family. So after 5 years, my parents decided that they do want to raise us around family, so we went back to Jordan,
Okay.
where we all our extended family lives there. Yani. But basically, like growing up, we always used to go to like Circassian events. And
Okay.
like there's actually like two Circassian clubs in Jordan, in the capital Amman.
Yeah.
So like we used to go to either one of them for like different events, some dances, some bazaars, stuff like that.
Okay.
And but like for me personally, my parents never forced me into that culture because it's a very close-knit culture, and obviously that has its benefits, but it also has its downsides if you're like always in a close-knit community and you don't really explore other options. So I did go to a Catholic school.
Oh, okay. There's so much in like the last 2 minutes that I didn't even know about you, and we've been friends for 2 years.
I think it was like, I mean, it's a Christian school. I'm pretty sure they were Catholic, but my parents chose that school instead of putting us in a Christians like in a Cherkess school, Circassian school, because we actually have a Circassian school in Jordan,
Okay.
where like mostly everyone there is Circassian, and they teach you how to dance and how to speak the language and stuff like that.
Oh.
But basically, the education in the school I went to was better.
Okay.
So they chose that path. So like we never grew up surrounded by other Circassians. We knew about them. We were part of the events and stuff like that, but we didn't like grow up in that close community in a sense.
I think that was smart too. Like that's a good mix of you learn about your culture, but you also like still prioritizing, I guess, your education in a way.
And like it opens you up to like meeting other people.
Exactly, and a big part of like just growing as a person is interacting with other groups and people. Because
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say like if you're isolated, then you don't learn much. You only have like a very sort of linear view of like the world and how things work too.
Yeah. Plus like the Circassian school in Jordan, it's like all Circassians in Jordan are Muslim. So basically, like going to the school I went to, it made you interact with different religions, different ethnicities. Like we have Palestinians, Jordanians, Cherkess people. We even had people like Chechen people.
Okay.
Chechen are basically cousins of Circassian people. Like we all lived in the same regions, I guess.
Yeah.
Before moving to like different.
That does make me think of like how coming here was also like a big step, like not just for me, but I think for like most Pakistanis, it's like a big step from like our like society and culture into here, where like religion is not that prominent, I guess, in the same ways that it is back home. So the one thing that shocks a lot of people is sort of how religion is treated here. And I think a lot of people end up reacting to it in like negative ways
Yeah, I
instead
agree.
of like accepting that people can have differences but still
Mhm.
get along. Do you remember like how you specifically learned about your ethnicity? Like, was it like a thing when you grew up? Because if you grew up in like the UAE, like it's there are different communities of people, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
So some part of you would maybe subconsciously know that there's some differences, or did you not? Did you not think that?
Honestly, I don't remember anything before the age of 6 or 7,
Okay.
like related to me being Circassian, because I
Okay.
think my parents didn't want to raise me um, thinking I'm different in a
Okay.
sense,
Yeah.
because that does put you in a bubble. We are a minority at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So like the people I met in Dubai, like in the UAE, were like a mix of different races.
Okay.
But when we went to Jordan, I think what introduced me to like the Circassian community was my uncle actually.
Okay.
He's a very like hardcore Circassian person, I guess.
Yeah.
So he's the one who started like teaching me about different things. He even told me about like lessons they would give in like one of the clubs, like language lessons and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And he used to go with me, and so it was basically my uncle who introduced me to this side of things.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
I think probably like a relative or like someone who's not directly like a person of authority, like your parent, like teaching you about it probably has a different impact too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it does because you're not forced into it in a sense. You're exposed to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And you can accept what you want.
Yeah, you can accept what you are instead of having it forced on you. Like I think the same applies to religion. Like you grow up with religion and it's forced on you to some extent.
Okay. I guess we can kind of move towards like if you want. You can also think about stuff from like back home, but like being on campus like because for me personally when I came here that's when I realized like there's a certain I don't know range of like differences and like certain experiences certain people view certain groups certain minorities negatively some positively some don't care racism basically so like can you think of like maybe a certain not event but like some situation that like was the trigger in your mind that okay like there are differences and like this is kind of like a threat but like or like I feel threatened or maybe is it something that you experience on a day-to-day basis here that makes you feel like that?
Okay, so like I'm gonna start with saying like okay, so basically I am Circassian, but like since we've been living in Jordan since the 19th century, like me, like my ancestors basically, we do consider ourselves Arabs because like we have the Jordanian passport. You can't go around and saying no, I'm Circassian. Like you have to admit to being Arab too, which is honestly a beautiful thing. Like the intercultural relations between it all. So like the thing about Turkey specifically is they have a lot of Czechs people. But and the community is huge. Like you find them in different cities everywhere. But the problem with that is that they're basically not as welcoming to Arabs. So like if they ask you where you're from and you tell them you're from Jordan, for example, they have a certain reaction to it. Not a really pretty reaction. Usually they either go silent or they're like, or they just like stop talking to you, or like they always have a weird reaction to like finding out you're Arab. But if you tell them you're Circassian, they usually like it because they're like, oh, okay, you're like siblings, we're siblings, we have like, so many Circassians here, but it honestly pisses me off because like I do identify as Jordanian, like I speak Arabic, it is my mother tongue, like, and like all my friends are Arab, so it doesn't make sense. Like that racism honestly pisses me off to like an incredible extent. And even like I'll tell you like a funny story, maybe it's funny now, it wasn't funny then. In my first year we were walking out the metro. Basically I think it was in Kizilay or something. And then like we're walking and like all of a sudden like one guy was like selling some tissues or something and he's like, oh, where are you guys from? In Turkish. So I just say like Jordan. And he was like, oh my god, bomb. And I just look at him and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what is that supposed to mean?
I don't know how to respond to that.
No one knew how to respond to that. We just walked away and he kept following us for a while. It was really weird.
Okay.
So yeah, people can be weird
Yeah.
when they find out you're Arab.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
reminds me of like I had a friend, he graduated now, but he's from Iran. But I think yeah, he's from Iran, and whenever like some like he speaks really really good Turkish, almost like he can pass off as fluent if you don't know, if you don't like push the conversation too much.
Yeah.
But when people ask him, he tends to say like, "Oh, I'm from Azerbaijan," and like someone who like this one time he met someone Turkish, and they actually told him like, by the way, like when you're meeting people, you should say that you're from Azerbaijan. Don't say you're from Iran. It'll be better. And he just listened to them. And he was like, okay,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ever thought about like the nuances to it.
Yeah, like actually before coming here, my second cousin used to study in Turkey.
Yeah.
I don't remember which city, it was in Ankara. And like when he came back, the first thing he told me was like, do not tell them you're from Jordan, tell them you're
Yeah.
Circassian. He was like,
Yeah.
because otherwise you might get into trouble. And
Yeah.
obviously you get into less trouble as a woman, I think, because guys do fight about stuff like that.
Maybe.
But the only thing I've faced were like comments,
True.
racism, stuff like that.
I mean, for me mostly because this reminds me of like I don't really go out much because of like struggling with the language, but also not being too comfortable with it unless I'm with a friend.
Yeah.
So even like on campus in the dorms, the most racism I see is like about food, and like if people don't know, Pakistani food uses a lot of spices, and I don't mean spicy when I say that. I just mean like there's a lot of like different types of spice and flavoring, and I think a lot of people are not too happy about using stuff that isn't just salt and pepper. Which yeah, that someone, did I tell you like someone this one time after I was done cooking, like they just put a note on the wall, like they just taped a note
I
and said
remember
like,
that.
yeah, like after you're done making your disgusting food, clean up after yourself.
I mean,
which by the way, I always clean up the kitchen after myself.
I know.
Yeah. So that was just
bro, honestly, like,
Yeah.
You can add this, you can remove it, I don't
Yeah.
care, but like, people used to like cook fish and like things that actually smell
like
in the
tuna.
kitchen. Yeah.
I don't like tuna. It's just the smell of tuna is too much for me.
Yeah, like fish smells more than spices, so like
Yeah.
whoever is cooking does not have the right to like say anything, honestly.
And it's
a
also
public kitchen.
yeah, exactly, and it's also interesting that you expect a kitchen to smell like fresh air because it's a kitchen. It's going to smell like, what's worse than that is like people completely clogging up the sinks and not picking up their trash because they think that's disgusting. I don't think there's anything gross about cleaning up after yourself or cleaning like the shelves or like the sink after you've made a mess. But like this stuff, like even though it's minor, it's still offensive. It's still quite like off-putting, like because you're already away from home and you're trying to feel at home in a completely new place, but it's the people around you that don't accept that.
Yeah. So basically, honestly, one of the highlights of me growing up in Jordan was like the fact that like Circassian lessons, like the language lessons were available. Because honestly, like some people, like some families do retain their language, like the Circassian language, but most of us do not, unfortunately. So it is technically a dying language, and like we admit that openly because like we don't really maintain it anymore. But you know, like learning that part of like our learning that about our ethnicity and learning the language and knowing how to like say the basics, honestly, like even the most basic words, it honestly is kind of empowering because you feel like you're connecting to your own roots.
Yeah.
And like I'm not saying I've ever felt like weird or left out in Jordan, but like speaking your own language and feeling like okay, you belong to like something greater than yourself in a sense felt really nice and very, I don't know, different in a sense.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think with us, like obviously we speak English because we were colonized and it's a big part of like school and education and everything. And Urdu, we had like in our post-colonial class we were talking about this too, like languages dying out and how you should write them. And the thing with Urdu is like there's like 200 million of us. That's not dying out. But the point in question was like there's so many different tribes and like so many different and like smaller communities and dialects that are a part of it, that those probably they're not carried on to like official government level, and those probably will die out because like say your grandparents and your parents speak a bit, but you don't really end up learning as much in today's day and age, I think. Because for me, like I can't speak Punjabi, I don't have the accent, I can't pull it off, and I understand like very basic words, but not too much.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And like, but the area that like my mom's family grew up in, we're not from there, but we settled there. And
Yeah.
like there's a different language that they speak over there, and my uncles can speak it fluently only because they grew up hearing it and around the people that they work with.
Okay.
They never studied it, and that's always been so interesting to me. So, if it was up to you to create an image or collage of your ethnicity, to visualize what it looks like for you, what are maybe 4 to 5 objects, color, food, or something you can pick of your choice that you'd like to put in that little collage?
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I'll pick the dresses, like our like cultural dress. They're very similar to other like I don't know, like other Circassian dresses, Caucasian dresses. Like we have similar stuff to like Turkish, Azerbaijan.
Okay, I think I get the idea.
Like that. I mean, they're very long dresses, long sleeves.
Yeah.
That's a traditional one.
I've never seen anyone wearing them.
We wore it like 2 years ago in an international festival. Okay.
Okay.
You do remember them?
Yeah.
They were green and like long.
Okay. I thought those were like the Afghani students.
Wow.
Because the Afghani students also did a dance. At the very end, I only remembered them. I don't remember the other ones.
No, like they were green and long, and like 2 of the guys actually played the accordion, which we call the pshina.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other guy also played the pshina, I think. They were both playing the same instrument.
I have zero memory.
Okay, so basically the dresses. The color green.
Okay.
Because our flag is green.
Okay.
A picture of like I guess our main instrument.
Okay.
And I think I'll put maybe like our main dish that we eat during like the Circassian dish. It's called chips pasta.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about
Okay, I'll tell you about chips pasta. So basically, okay, so chips and pasta, that's literally like what the recipe translates into. So like the chips part is made of like a walnut sauce.
Oh.
It sounds very weird, I understand.
No, it sounds really good. Yeah,
because people usually are like
No, I've heard of using like walnut in like baking recipes or cooking recipes, and I can imagine like it's like the way people use cashew too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I cook, bro.
Yeah, I cook, bro. It's honestly so savory because like, they mix walnuts and like I think cream and milk. Like it's a really interesting combination. Yeah, but it's so rich and so tasty.
Yeah.
And then the pasta part is basically like bulgur and rice. Kind of mixed together, and you like shape them into a dome.
Yeah.
So you put that and then you put the sauce over it. And the chicken is like tomato, oven, baked chicken, I guess.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and then we add like some spicy sauce. It's called chimchi daga.
Wow, that sounds incredible.
So good.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, so I'm honestly really happy that we grew up with like the food aspect in Jordan too. Yeah, because we have a lot of good dishes, but this is the main one, and it's very wintry too, because like obviously it's heavy and savory. Yes. So we eat it in winter.
Sets you to sleep.
Pretty much.
Same with biryani.
Yeah.
Like I think like I said this in the last episode too, but I really do think like food is like such a big carrier of culture.
It really is.
Because not only is it like every region and like every land is going to have its own flavor, its own type of vegetables, because the water and the soil is different everywhere, its own spices, its own methods of cooking. And there's so much history in that alone. And generally I love food so much. So like for me, like additionally, like it also allows people to come together. And okay, so when I came to campus, that's when I really started cooking myself. At home, I didn't used to at all, but I had all of this knowledge just from watching my mom cook. Yeah. So
that's
like
amazing.
You can pick up cultural practices and like stuff the way like your ancestors have done just by watching, and I think that's really, really amazing.
Honestly, like that reminded me of the fact that basically like this dish, for example, the reason like we ate heavy dishes like this is because basically we do come from the Kafkas mountains and it's very cold over there. So like our food is generally heavy and very like savory, makes you warm. Like we have like lentil based dishes like soups and stuff like that. So they're all very like warm in a sense. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, it does. I do remember a bit of like this from like Ejay talking about it in the last one. this question should have gone before the last one.
Okay.
But like we kind of discussed like aspects of like you don't need to comment on this, we can move past this, but like like the way history and recording history can be biased. If there's one idea that's like kind of common about you, but you feel like it's incorrect, what is like the one thing that you'd like to like reshape in the minds of people if you could?
Two things come to mind.
Okay.
One is related to me being Arab, the other is related to me being Circassian. So the Arab part is when you tell someone you're Jordanian, and like, because I'm more fair than like what the typical Arab would look like, you would say.
Yeah.
Like people are honestly surprised, or they don't believe you're Arab, and like I speak Arabic. I've lived in Jordan for like what 23 years now. Like my family lives there, my grandparents are there. So like that kind of pisses you off, especially since we do have Arab blood in our family too. Like my great grandmother is Bedouin, for example.
Yeah.
So like we have that in our family. So you can't be like racist towards your own people. Like, it just doesn't make sense. We love everyone the way they are. I grew up with Arab people. It honestly pisses me off because like even in school I didn't really have Circassian friends. I had like normal human beings. You know what I mean? Like they were all like Jordanian, Palestinian. We didn't really see past, like we didn't
color
see
or
color.
something. Yeah, like
race.
ideally that's how you should see people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other one is, you know, when you tell someone you're Circassian, if they're not really aware of what that is, the first thing they would say is, "Oh, so you're Russian." So like, let me explain why that's.
I remember a variation of this conversation from a year ago.
Okay.
But yeah.
Let me tell you why that pisses Circassians off is because basically the genocide or the war happened between like the Circassians and the Russians back during the Soviet Union times. So like the war between us lasted for 100 years actually. I think a little over 100 years if I'm not mistaken. And it ended on the 21st of May 1864. So it's been a while. It's been almost 200 years. A little less than that. But so like when someone calls you Russian, it really like kind of it feels like a stab to the heart because like they're basically the people who kicked us out of our homeland. And I'm not saying all Russians are bad because obviously a lot of people who live
of course.
Russians now do not even know what happened back then. But like back when Sochi, like the Olympics in Sochi happened in 2012, I think. We used to protest in front of the Russian embassy all the time. Because they were not admitting to the genocide that happened. And basically the genocide, the last genocide happened in Sochi. So a lot of our ancestors are buried there. Damn. So Russians were not admitting to the genocide and the massacre basically. So like we were protesting all the time and like we weren't watching the Olympics. We were protesting all the sponsors. Like we protested McDonald's since 2012 basically. So like all that aspect kind of wraps it all up and just like when someone throws it in your face and they call you Russian, it just like feels like a sting. It really does.
Because that's still a part of your history.
Yeah, it's still a part of our history.
A lot of people are like, oh, it's been so long. That's not how it works.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Like, there's no bad blood between us because, like, the generation now is very different.
Of course.
But, like, admitting to something like that happening is very important to your own culture.
It's kind of similar to what's happening now, too. Like, it's not about the people.
Yeah.
It's about the governments involved.
Exactly.
That's
it's
where
about
the
power
is. Yeah.
Yeah. People who have the power.
Okay. Yeah. On a lighter scale.
Yeah.
After all of this, like kind of thinking about all the things that we talked about, what is the one thing that you'd like to say to your younger self that you wish someone would have told you? And one advice that you'll give to your future self?
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have to be related to ethnicity?
Ethnicity, identity, like just about yourself. It can be something different. That's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Okay.
Honestly, I think to my past self, to the younger version.
Yeah.
I think I would just tell her that, like, you know, identity isn't what defines you. Honestly, I think I would tell that to like the very young version of myself because once I did get introduced to the Circassian community. It's very hard for you not to try to identify with it or try to be part of the culture, like immersed in the culture in a sense. So I think I would just tell that person that it's okay to not really belong anywhere because like technically we're not supposed to be in Jordan, for example.
Mhm.
We belong in like Circassia, which is not somewhere we're gonna be.
Yeah.
So like it's stuff like that. Like you actually make a home of wherever you are, depending on the people
Yeah.
around you. It's like built here, like having people
Yeah.
around you that like make it a home.
That's very sweet.
Yeah. What's happening to you?
No, I'm not gonna start crying. Don't worry. It just you commented on a lot of things that, let's say, I think about as well. So that's why it's just really sweet. Future self.
Oh, future self. I don't know. Like, what would I tell my future self? What would you tell your future self, Alicia?
Oh no. About identity.
Yeah.
Okay, now I see why this question is difficult. I'd say keep going and trying to figure out what's right, because no one type of person, no person belonging from a certain country or something is going to like help you just based off of that label.
Yeah.
Answers are all over. You experience things and you figure it out.
Yeah.
So don't be scared to experience it, even though like after getting beat up like 20 different times, you start to get hesitant, but just keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's your future advice too?
I think I would just tell myself not to put games. Not to put myself in a bubble in a sense.
Yeah.
Because I think once you get exposed to, like, since we came to Turkey, you get exposed to different ideas, cultures, races.
Yeah.
You slowly start building walls around you.
True.
Which honestly is necessary to some extent, but like
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with a bubble
Yeah.
is never going to be a good thing. So like I think I would just tell myself to always be open to new ideas and concepts.
I mean, there is a difference between cutting yourself off from everything and like knowing what your own beliefs are, and then being accepting and understanding of like where someone might be coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent,
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Then I think we can bring this to a close. And my last thing would be for our listeners, if you want to follow us for updates or DM us for requests of either certain anything that you want us to talk about, or if you yourself want to be a guest on the podcast, please head on over to our Instagram at Kaltbilkent, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.